Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host, Brett
Gilliland. Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got Casey Jacox with me. Casey, how we doing, my man?
Fantastic. We're healthy. We woke up again today, so it's a good day. Good day to go out and do something positive.
Little Ted Lasso back there. Be a goldfish, believe. It's good stuff. The goldfish is a good concept, isn't it?
It's a great concept. I as a former college quarterback, there's an Uncle Rico moment right there for people who know Napoleon Dynamite. It speaks to me because you got to have a quick memory. In sales, you got to have a quick memory. And I teach my daughter in basketball. Quick memory, golf, you got to have a quick memory. But yeah, I love it. Such a great show.
And a little short-term memory too, right? I talked to some baseball players, and they're like, if you gave up the home run last night and you're a reliever, you got to come back the next day and act like that didn't happen and be ready to rock. And in business as well, man. But we'll dive into all this stuff. But you are a sales and leadership coach, and you help companies realize the power and impact of humility, vulnerability, and curiosity on relationship building. 25 years of experience, and got yourself a author of the book, Win the Relationship, Not the Deal, and a host of a weekly podcast for dads called the Quarterback DadCast. Not a podcast, but a dadcast. I like it. Well, Before we dive into all that stuff, Casey, man, what's helped make you the man you are today?
I think resilience and grit and great parents, great coaches in life that kept me humble. A wife of 20, going on 26 years, who's kept me grounded and humble, and just a mindset of everyone's replaceable, no matter how successful you think you are, you're not. I think I'd say that one of the biggest things is an injury that happened to me in high school that I think about often, that catapulted me to the Division II level. What I had a chance to play higher, but it's an injury story that I love telling. And as my kids have gotten older, they're like, "Wow, that's a cool story, Dad." I'm like, but it's real, and it was brutal to go through, but it really just prepped me for, when things are going great, just embrace it. And when things suck, it's only going to last for a short time if you don't get stuck. There's a great Kirk Cousins. I'm sure he didn't think of this, but someone else told it. He said, tough times won't last, but tough people do. Yeah. And so I love that phrase. And so I think about tough times and how do you lean on them for stories to help you get out of things. Yeah.
So I got to know what the story was. What was the injury? What happened?
So I was in a quarterback battle my junior year. I was the underdog. I was a skinny kid, not as athletic. The other kid was bigger, faster, stronger. He went on to get drafted by the Yankees. And they opened up the battle, and fast forward the story, I ended up beating him out, which is kind of like half the people were like, what? He did it? And had an okay junior in high school. And we did okay, started to get some love from some D3 schools, smaller schools. And then not really thinking of it. Then I worked my tail off, weight room, throwing, doing everything. Squeezing every ounce of athletic ability out of me. And I went to the University of Washington football camp that summer with my friend who was getting recruited by him. I was like, sure, I'll go. And I just wanted to play with people who were a lot better than me or people I've been around. And it elevated my game. And so I ended up going to this camp. At the end of the camp, they're announcing awards, and they're announcing the best quarterback at the camp. I'm looking around like, man, I wonder who it was. Not even a chance thought it was me. And they ended up naming me. I'm like, what?
Wow.
And I went from not being on the radar to now meeting with the coaches afterwards, getting tickets to every home game, getting told, hey, we're going to have film. We're going to have people watching every one of your games. We want you to send us your best game. Here's tickets. Here's locker room passes. I'm like, what? It just hit me all of a sudden. Well, fast forward, we have a great spring, great summer. That fall, we go into camp. And we have these things in Seattle called jamborees. Some of you guys have them out there, but kind of a practice game. And it was right for the first game of the season. And the last play of this jamboree against this team, I get put back in, and I still remember the play, Lee Wright, 90 read. Why we called a pass play, we did. And snap was a little bit slow. The nose tackle in the gap, shot the gap. His knee kind of jumped onto my toe, so I couldn't move. So I almost got into a catcher stance. Defensive end comes around the end, blasts me from the back. And it felt like my tongue of my shoe flew off. And I'm like, I did not feel good. Immediate pain, went into shock. Tried to get up, collapsed. Tried to get up again, collapsed. They helped me off. And typical high school trainer, God love him, like, I think you'll be fine. Just take some ibuprofen. Yeah. You'll be back on Monday. No, it's hurting, Brett, bad. And so I'm almost in tears. And I tell my parents, I'm like, I got to get to something's not right. So we went to the hospital, x-rayed it. Doctor comes out, goes, we got to get you in surgery. You broke the shit out of this thing. Sorry. And there's 4.
Oh, you can cuss. I don't care.
Okay. 4 broken bones. We had to put a pin like this big in it. And the guy beat out. Now he's going to be our quarterback. The world moves on. And I was in denial. I was like, what? After 3 games, I'm depressed. I'm hoping he's going to play bad. I hope he sucks. I hope he is the worst person ever. And I'm a captain thinking all these things, not telling anybody, but in my head, which is causing borderline depression. And something inside of me clicked and said, I can't do this. I got to ask for help, which is like where I learned vulnerability.
That's
and
awesome.
I went to my high school football coach, Marty Osborne. I said, Coach, I am so embarrassed about my behavior. I just need to get this out. I need help because I'm freaking the worst teammate possible. I'm hoping Shane plays like crap. I hope you guys suck. I'm not having fun. He's like, I'm so proud of you. I'm like,
that's amazing.
Did you just hear what I said? Why would you say I'm proud of you? He's like, the fact that you had the strength to come tell me all that stuff and to get it out, we're going to find you a role. I go, and I had so bad attitude, like, I'm hurt. I'm in crutches. I have a cast. What kind of role can I have? He goes, Case, you know this playbook better than I do. Why don't you go up in the booth every game now? You're going to be my offensive coordinator. Help me call plays. I'm like, what? And it was like a vacuum sucked all the negative energy out of me. The dude who played quarterback now, Shane, who I beat out my junior year, he would go on, Brett, to set our single season passing yardage record. He took us to state playoffs first time in 20 years, and he was named second team all-league quarterback, and I had to watch.
Oh, wow.
Best thing that ever happened to me.
Isn't that amazing?
100%. You go through these things, you don't realize it then, but like that experience helped me to go on to play in college. And I had no film. My high school coach told Central, and then UW called Central on my behalf. He says, the guy's got no film, but he'll play. I was the last quarterback brought on. I was 12th in the depth chart when I showed up. I ended up being a 3-year starter, honorable mention, All-American my senior year. And it's because of that injury. Yeah. And because of a coach named Marty Osborne who, didn't judge me. He helped me, met me where I was at and helped me grow. And that shaped me to the guy I am right now.
Yeah, that's thank you for sharing, man. That's a big deal. And it's funny, my biggest learning as a professional was my second year in the business of being a financial advisor, and it was my worst year ever to this day, right? Hopefully it always will be my worst year, but it was the most learning year that I ever had, and it was through the hardest time, So for anybody having a hard time right now, hopefully one day you'll wake up and say that was the best thing happening. But I know it's tough in the moment because it doesn't feel that way, man. It doesn't feel that way at all. Talk about vulnerability, because you mentioned it now a couple times, and I'm a very vulnerable person myself, and I believe it's helped me get where I'm at, because I think the more vulnerable we can be, the deeper relationships, the better we can be. Talk to me about that and why it's important to you.
I think vulnerability is so important because, like Ryan Holiday writes in a lot of his books, ego is the enemy. Yep. Ego is just toxic energy, and we're not vulnerable to share where we sucked or where we once failed. Then what happens inside of corporate environments that fear loves to hide, and then when there's not vulnerability, then curiosity goes down, and then when curiosity goes down, humility goes down too, and then we have ego, and then we have people get protective, and we don't want to share, and so the power of saying I don't know is one of the most powerful things people can say. And one of my great leadership tips, one of my mentors told me, he goes, Casey, it's okay not to know every answer. It's just not okay not to do anything about it. And so I think about it in like a sales process or sales mindset, or so my wealth management firm brought me on to consult with them for 3 years, which I never would have thought in my wildest dreams I knew anything about wealth management. But what's interesting is like, even those folks, they're like, why would I share? Like, where would I share? I don't know. Like, because as the person who you're managing my money, I don't think you're going to memorize every stock on the NASDAQ or every stock on the New York stock. That's not your job. Your job is to help make sure I don't lose money. If you did, just minimize it. And if you don't have a question, leverage your team. Yep. But if you say, oh yeah, you know what you're talking about, but you don't, and then now you're like stuck because now you're stuck in a lie. Now it's a lose-lose. Yeah. And I think about as leadership though, Brett, like most leaders don't slow down to think about like saying, hey, have I ever told you a time where I struggled and I didn't know what I was talking about? And I think when leaders do that, at least the leaders I work with, it's so powerful when that fear is removed. Yeah. And Brene, I don't know if you follow Brene Brown's work, but she's one of the most downloadable TED Talks in history, PhD. Yep. She talked about, and I've seen her speak live, and she can drop one articulate F-bomb. It is fantastic to listen to.
Like, gosh, he crushes that word.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. And so let's talk about, so I know some of the topics that I prepared for today is thinking about, and I saw something you talk about, TED, TED. Tell me, explain, describe. So let's talk about that. What's that mean? Tell me, explain, describe.
It's a framework that I got taught that I now teach, how people ask questions. For the moms and dads out there, it's great people to practice on your kids. So when your son or daughter comes home, it's like, hey, Billy, how was school? Good. What'd you do? Nothing. Did you have fun? Yep. All right. Well, go play Xbox, but we'll see you in 6 hours.
Yeah.
I have a great relationship with my son. No, you don't. But if I said, hey, Billy, tell me 2 things that made you smile at school today. Whatever he says, great. Tell me more about that. Hey, describe, if you could change anything about your school, tell me what would come to mind. And it relates to business. One of my favorite questions I ask people when I start a meeting, and I got taught this, and I had to get out of my own way, is, so if I was meeting you for the first time, I'd say, Brett, thanks for your time. I know we spoke 2 days or 3 days ago based on you wanted to talk about A, B, or C, but before we get started, describe what would be an ideal outcome for you in the time we have today. Now, most people, when they go do this, they're like, well, I don't want to ask that because I'm going to look, that's my job. I go, it is your job to be prepared. But what happens if what you talked about 2 or 3 days ago has changed and they want to talk about something different? Wouldn't you want to know? So TED-based questions, when you really practice them, remember like old school Nintendo games when you had the cheat codes like the up, down, A, B, whatever.
Yeah.
You could do like
Contra.
That's what, yeah.
I got a funny story on.
Great pull.
Yeah, you'll like this one. So you play Super Tecmo Bowl as a football guy.
Oh yeah, Phil McConkey.
Yeah. So the best team was the Raiders, right? Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen, right? So Marcus Allen lived in our town for about, 5 or 6 years. And this was, 2 years ago. I'm on the putting green. We're the first tee time, me and a couple of my buddies. Well, I get there first. It's like 6:30 in the morning. I'm putting, and I look over, and there's freaking Marcus Allen. I'm like, holy smokes, that's Marcus Allen. But, I wanted to keep my cool. I didn't say anything to him. Like, hey, what's up, man? Whatever. And then I'm putting. He looks over, and he's like, hey, do you mind? He goes, I'm a one-some. Do you mind if I go off before your foursome and just so I can just get going? I said, no, man, absolutely. Go ahead, have fun, play well. And he turns around, starts walking, and I said, hey, Marcus. And I said, I just want to tell you, man, you are an effing stud in Super Tecmo Bowl. So I did this long pause, and I told him, and he literally like bent over and like put his hands on his knees and started laughing. He goes, that's freaking hilarious. So anyway, I interrupted, but that was a good Marcus Allen story.
But that's uncommon right there. And that's like, so what you just did there, I teach what you just did that most people don't think about doing.
Okay.
Right. But why would, so to me, that was being vulnerable. Why not? Let your personality out.
Yeah.
He'll remember you. He'll be talking. He probably talks about that story. Dude, I was at St. Louis, this golf course, this random dude. Talking about my Tech Bowl game.
Yeah. Not my Hall of Fame career, but my Tecmo Bowl game. That was awesome. So anyway, I interrupted. So you were talking about that.
That's right. Yeah. So like the phrase when we're trying to uncover, like, for example, back to business, we're uncovering business pain. We're trying to, because like, if you can't, in any sort of selling, if you can't uncover something that's not working, they don't need you, is what I teach. Yeah. So, if you can't find anything, that's okay. Then walk away. So you can still maintain a relationship, but just like, don't try to convince them. In any sort of selling, they're going to convince themselves. It's our job as sellers or as business people to ask great questions. And so let's say we ask something that kind of triggers them to talk. Most people, when they smell a deal, they pounce like a cat with catnip. And what I teach, that I got taught, is say, great, tell me more about that. Pause. And I ask people, I say, can you hear this? They'll be like, no, what? I go, because I tap my finger 3 times. So I tap my finger, I tap myself 3 times in between a question to give space so that the person can think about their answer or think about the question I just asked. So let it sit in. But whenever I say, Brett, like, hey, tell me more about that, no one's ever said, hey, go after yourself. I don't want to tell you more about that. They keep talking.
Yeah.
And that's, as a seller, that's our goal. We want them talking. We don't want to be the Navy or the Air Force pilot talking about how fast we can fly the plane and, hey, you want to see some film? And We want to be talking about them, learning about them. And I think TED-based questions are such an amazing way to do it. I learned this at age 41. I'm almost 50 now, and I wish I would have learned it in my 20s, because I always say I was right guy, right time, right place, lucky enough to be a number one seller at the company I was at. But I think I would have had way more success if I would have had this framework earlier in my career.
Yeah. It's funny. I use ADT as my acronym is ask, don't tell. So I can tell you everything you want to know, right? But the more I ask questions and let you figure it out, then it's the gospel if you come up with it, right? And I thought in sales, if I'm telling you, well, of course I'm telling you that. I'm trying to sell you something. That's what people could think, So ask great questions, man. It's great. It's great stuff. How do you work on belief? So the circuits of success, hence the podcast we're on, is your attitude, your belief system, your actions that ultimately get results. So I'd like to focus on that belief cornerstone, if you will. What is it that you believe in that is to your core? This works. Nobody can change your mind. And how important is that belief for you?
Well, hence the belief sign behind me that people think that's for Ted Lasso. It's actually for me, Brett, to remind myself that I believe what I do matters. And it's also for the people I work with when they bring me on, like to coach them or like help them like get out unstuck. And so I always ask them, one of the first questions I'll say, do you believe what you do matters? And sometimes, I don't know if we're on YouTube or it's just audio, but sometimes people put their hand up like this. It's like I'm like, so are you an alligator? Because the hand's pretty low. And I'm like, ask them again, do you believe what you do matters? And so they'll put it way up. I'm like, good. So if you believe what you do matters, then you should have zero fear to call anybody, to follow up to anybody, to ask anybody anything if there's true belief. And belief comes from, I think, got to be prepared with practice. Don't wing it. Prepared means like if you work for a company, do you truly believe that you can help somebody? And I think if you do, like that has to be a foundational core in your soul, that you don't block out the naysayers about, this, that. All we believe is that we believe, I know we help people, and because we can tell stories not from our perspective, but from the customer's perspective, which takes practice. But I think about what 3 words that is my core that I know 1,000% work for 48 years of life, or the more humble I am, the more curious I am, the more vulnerable I am, I'm going to create amazing environments wherever I go. Yeah. From sports to the work I'm doing now that I did not mean to do. This job found me. When I left corporate, I didn't mean to do this. People say the word calling, like I am living a calling without a doubt.
How did it just happen?
Another funny story. So when I left in 2019, I had a voice in my head that kept saying, go. I had clients that saying, man, go out and go change the world. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was kind of worked out where the company I was at, it just kind of, which I love them. We had a great exit that usually when you've been in a place for almost 20 years and someone leaves, it could be rocky, but it was like what they wanted me to do didn't really align with what I wanted to do. And there really wasn't a role for me anymore. So we just kind of said, hey, maybe this is time to high five and go. And so I left, took a few months off to get my head right. Played too much golf, got golfer's elbow. That was embarrassing. And then
golf can be a physical sport too. All you football guys want to make fun of us golfers, back in the day. And now our sport's cool, isn't it? Pretty freaking cool now.
I would have played golf for the record, but it was during football season.
Yeah.
Where I lived. I couldn't
That's the same here, yeah. I always joke that's why I didn't play football. I was a golfer, but all
you would have been a stud linebacker. I know it.
Oh, I absolutely. And this is about 40 pounds heavier than what I was in high school too. So all 110 pounds of me at 16 years old. I think I lied on my driver's license, but so hopefully I can't get in trouble.
Still outdrive them.
That's right. I can hit a golf ball farther than them, which is good.
But anyway, so I wrote a book, started a podcast, and then my second year of my non-compete, I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I was networking with people, and then I started to have these conversations with people say they're looking for a coach for their VP, or I'm looking for a speaker for this, and my mind was like, God, I think I could do that, but something inside me was stopping me from doing it. And when I realized it, I was like, the voice or the story I kept telling myself was, I'm not certified. I'm not a certified coach, so I can't do that. Yeah. So one day I talked to a CEO from Chicago. Her name's Leslie, and she said, "Hey, Case, we're looking for you're kind of network guy. I'm looking for a coach to coach my VP of sales and some process stuff, some things we're working on doing. Do you know anybody?" I'm like, maybe. Let me think about it. In my mind, I was like, you idiot. But I didn't say that. In my mind, I was like, it's me. So I called. I let her hang up the phone. And she said, she said she had to go. And so I immediately picked up the phone. I called a guy from Toronto who I met in this journey. He's like a really talented international business coach. And I said, hey, do you have like 2 minutes? He goes, yeah. And he goes, can you do it on Zoom instead? So we got on Zoom. And so we started talking real quick. And I go, I think I love your advice. And I need you to be honest with me. I feel like I've had these signs keep coming where I should be getting into like speaking and coaching. But what stopped me is I'm not certified. What do you think I should do? And he pauses, Brett, and looks at me. He goes, hey, man, can I be honest with you? I said, yeah, that's why I called you. He's like, no, I don't think you can take it, what I'm about to tell you. I said, no, listen, I've thrown 4 interceptions and a half. I've been booed in a stadium. I've been part of biggest deal in my company history, one of the biggest flunks, been in boardrooms. Dude, I can take it. He's like, all right, cool. He's like, so what I heard about you is you've achieved A, B, and C. You've achieved D, E, and F. I go, yep. Quote, he goes, good, then get out of my mother effing face and stop wasting my mother effing time. And I'm just like, what?
I like that, dude.
And he holds up my book. He goes, hey, dumb ASS, here's your certification. Are you shitting me? I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And I literally felt like I was a 5th grader that got in trouble at recess and had to go scurry back to class. And I called Leslie back. I said, Leslie, it's Case. She goes, I know it's you. And I told you I have to go. I go, do you have like 2 minutes? I'll be really fast. She's like, you better talk fast. I got to get to my meeting. I go, are you still looking for your coach? She goes, yeah, I just told you that. I go, I think I found your guy. Can I tell you about him? She's like, sure. So I described myself in 3rd person. She's like, oh my God, who is it? I go, it's me. When do I start?
Oh,
She's
that's
like,
awesome.
what? I go, I know. I don't know what to charge you. I have a business license. I barely have a website. I don't have any materials, but what I have is experience. And I know I am so confident I can help her. And so how about this? Whatever you were going to pay your person, pay me 75% of that. And after 3 months, if you've not seen me start to influence her habits or change her habits, I'll give you all your money back and I'll go do something different. She's pauses. She's like, frick it, let's do it. And I have not looked back. And every customer I've helped since then has been personal referral or word of mouth.
That's great. That's awesome. How long has that been?
4.5 years.
Yeah. And that's the belief, right? I mean, I think about belief, your faith, there's belief in self, there's belief in goal achievement, but there's belief in, because I'm this way, of you can do it you can build the bridge while you're walking across the bridge, right? I think so many people, that paralysis by analysis, right? Where I got to have this perfect business license and my perfect business plan and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, go start building the business, man. Make it happen.
I totally
agree with that.
I mean, my first website was a joke. I didn't have brand colors. I didn't have consistency. I didn't even think that my PowerPoint sucked. I look back now, but people still hired me.
Yeah. Well, it's your belief in what you're going to bring into the table, right? And it's the same thing when we started Visionary Wealth Advisors, our own firm, 10, almost 11 years ago. We didn't have a website. We didn't have business cards. And we still got advisors to come with us, and it's like but you got to have the belief and be able to, quote unquote, sell what you're doing and have that passion. And that's what's going to do it for you. So how do you personally go through the negative self-talk? I think we can all have that here and there, right? So how do you deal with that for either yourself or for your clients?
Love that question because I have, when I left for about a year in between leaving corporate, doing my own thing, I worked for a company called Limitless Minds, which is Russell Wilson's company. And
Nice.
I was a hired coach, mindset coach for them. And I met some fantastic people. And a lot of the work I did with them, I learned about a lot of neuroscience work and brain work. And so one of the things I learned from them, one of the coaches was USA Soccer, guy named Travis Thomas, guy named Colin Henderson.
Travis Thomas is a St. Louis guy. Yeah.
St. Louis,
he's been on my
exactly.
podcast. He's a good dude.
Okay, yeah.
He's got a
So
book
I
coming
learned-
out. Free plug for Travis.
It actually already came out, I think.
Oh, did it come out? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But he is, so I learned that we as humans have north of, 85, 90,000 thoughts a day.
Yep.
And of those thoughts, north of 80% are negative. So as long as I know that, I'm okay. If I think these negative thoughts, okay, that's normal. But how do I get out of that? Is like a framework I learned. I teach now called HAW, which allows me to it's a 4-minute kind of outward meditation process where I start it in the morning. It's the first minute you just breathe. The second minute you're going to say I have statements out loud to yourself. These are physical things, emotional things, or opportunistic things. The third minute is I am statements. Again, physical things, emotional things are opportunistic. And then last minute, the fourth minute is I will statements. And why it works, I'm not sure. But when I do it, something in my body kind of just triggers like confidence, and it gets me thinking about something positive. And then I think about the word I will. So one thing I teach my clients is, many people use phrases like I need to do that, I should do that, and I have to start doing that. And all those words in my mind create anxiety without a plan, which clouds our mind, which allows negative thoughts to come in. But if I say I will, and then X, I will fill in the blank, and then I write it down and I keep it visible, those thoughts of action become things a lot quicker than all the things I think I need to do. One of the visionary things I share with clients, I said, imagine, so if someone's stuck and they're going through negative Nelly mode, I said, imagine if you're crossing a bridge, crossing a river, and they're on a bridge, and it's a 2-lane road, one going this way, one going that way, and you get on this bridge and it's dead stop traffic, and when we stop, there's the dude running the bridge. He comes on the intercom and says, hey, everybody, just sorry for the traffic. You're going to be stopped for 10 seconds, but you'll be up and going. I go, if someone told you that, what's the chances of you rolling down your window and talking to the person to the left of you? I mean, probably not high, right? Why would I do that? 10 seconds, I'm going to be out. I go, imagine that car to your left is your negative thought. So don't give them the day or time. Just ignore them. And instead focus on things you will do, things you can do. And this kind of goes back to the question you asked me in the beginning, being vulnerable. So when we get stuck or we get going through tough times, are you going to keep it in your head? Are you going to pretend life's great? Or are we going to ask for help? And you got time for one more story?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So as I think about that, I had a client that was stuck, and we were working on vulnerability related to kind of some self-talk, things her team were doing. And this was back in 2021, right before my dad passed away. And today actually is January 9th is my dad's 83rd birthday, if he was still alive.
Happy birthday, Dad.
That's right. Big Mike. Happy birthday, Pops. And so he was right. It was like probably a week or two before he passed, and I was coaching the CEO, and she said, I joined the Zoom call, and she's like, Casey, how you doing? I go, I'm doing great. Awesome. Which is BS. And about the 42 minute mark of the thing, something hit me inside and says, you're lying to her. And I go, Megan, hold up. She's like, what? I go, I'm lying to you. And she looks so shocked. Like, what are you talking about? I go, I'm teaching you to be vulnerable. Yeah, but I was not vulnerable today. Can you ask me how I'm doing again at the beginning of the call? She looked confused. I go, just ask me how I'm doing. How you doing? I go, I'm doing really, really awful. She's like, why? I go, because my dad's about to die. I should have told you that. Tears well up in her eyes. Tears well up in my eyes. She ends up talking to me about her dad. I'm telling about my dad. Now, I was busy that day, Brett. Now, call it serendipity, call it universe, call it God moment. But was it a little ironic that my meeting next got canceled, her meeting next got canceled, and we ended up talking for the next hour and 20 minutes about stories of our dads? You know, this is a client I'm working with. Now, our relationship went from here to the moon.
Yeah. And
at the end of it, I go, Megan, this was awesome. I go, this is what we should post on LinkedIn. People need to hear these stories. I'm not doing it for likes. I'm doing it for just, if we can inspire someone to be vulnerable and open up and not bring that negative toxic energy. I go, are you okay if I do it? And she's like, oh my God, yeah. I go, we had pictures of her dad, pictures of my dad. And we literally told the story of what happened. And that post would go on to have like north of almost like 30,000 engagements. And I didn't do anything. I just told a story, and that was not the goal.
But you were vulnerable.
Vulnerable, yeah. So,
the V word.
V, baby. That's why I tell clients V plus C plus H equals leadership.
I love it. It's true. It's true. And you said I think you said there were 4 steps. There's the I am and the I will. Was there something above that?
So you breathe the first minute.
Oh,
the
breathe.
Second
Yeah.
minute is I have. Third minute is I am, and fourth minute is I will. Last story real quick on self-talk. Do you know the Bill Buckner story?
I do. It's a freaking unbelievable story.
Do you know what happened 19 days before the air?
He told himself that he had the vision of himself having a ball go through his legs and and losing the game.
Not many people know that. Impressive that you do, Brett. Yeah. many people know the air, but they don't know
Right.
that he got interviewed and said that he keeps having this nightmare. And I said, so no matter if you're in wealth management or consulting or construction, if you tell yourself things are going to happen, your thoughts become things.
100. I'm writing it down. We'll just go there now. It's the law of attraction, right? I mean, it's. I tell my kids this all the time, and I remember my oldest when he was. I think might have been my second one. He couldn't get his seatbelt on. He's like, I can't do this. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And he just kind of like stopped. He's kind of whining. He was little, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And he's like, it stopped him in his tracks. I'm like, if you think you can, you can't. If you think you can't, you can't. So if you say, I can't do this, you can't do this. And so now it's just like, it's, always in our house. That's what we talk about is, I believe in that, right? Do you believe in the law of attraction as well, I assume?
Yeah.
Give me a story.
100%.
Law of attraction. Or just what comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think, let's see. I mean, one, I have a story about like the ha type thing and self-talk relating to like, kind of manifesting something where, actually here's one. Here's one for that just popped in my mind. So when I was, call it 27, 28, first year I won top seller of this company, where everybody's celebrating, have a great time. And I go to the men's room real quick. And my boss was my VP was there, who I didn't really know that well. He's like, dude, great job. Good year. I'm like, oh, thanks. I didn't really know him that well. He's like, so what's next? I go, what do you mean? He's like, well, what do you want to do next? I go, well, I don't know. I'm kind of just celebrating the night. He's like, well, think about it, because I'm going to ask you tomorrow. What do you want to do? I'm like, geez, dude, chill out.
Yeah.
I'm like immature 20-year-old, whatever. And he's like, so I go, I said, well, I'll just say no. I want to make X. This absorbent number.
Right.
He's like, are you just saying that, or do you actually truly believe that? I go, no, I think I want to do it. He goes, I don't think you believe it. No, I do. And now I'm like, just because I didn't want to look like I was soft to him, which was not the right.
I believe it.
I overcommitted. He goes, all right, well, I'm going to follow up with you on Monday, and I'll put together a plan to kind of let you know, like reverse engineer what you have to do from a business perspective in our staffing space or consulting space to know like how much business you got to bring in based on our comp plan to help do that. I'm like, uh-oh. And so then I'm like, well, someone's going to do this. Why not me? And I had to like change my mindset over the weekend. And I went in, and the number he figured out was I had to have 155 consultants in our world, in the staffing world. That's how we kind of measure, like if you have a consultant billing at a client and how we made money was like, the number in between what you paid and what you billed them, past benefits, all those things. And so I figured out, okay, if I had 155 people working for me at my clients, then I would achieve that goal. And I wasn't even close, Brett. I was like, 30. And then anyway, so I kept that piece of paper up and visually, and I just kept believing it. And people would ask me what it is. I said, I'll tell you when I reach it. And all of a sudden, 3 years later, 4 years later, and this paper traveled with me whenever we would move offices. And it looked like almost like a part of the Gettysburg Address with the burnt corners and brown places all over. Yeah. And then early December, my best client, a guy calls me and goes, Jacox, you sitting down? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? He's like, we kind of had a financial miscue. I'm thinking, oh shoot, bad news. He's like, we have to spend X before the end of the year or we lose it. And so we're putting a fast track on all these projects. You're our number one vendor. We're gonna hire about 75 people. They're gonna be you can get as much as you want until you mess up. And I literally was like, oh my God. And so then we immediately put our team together, plans. I mean, it was like no egos. Everyone got on board. We would fill like 68 or 69 of those 75 positions. Those people would be on project for 3-4 years. One day I finally hit 155. I'm like, oh my God, I did it. But a lot of it was just, it goes back to belief, what your podcast is about, visualizing, telling someone about it, asking for help, putting a plan together, and then never wavering. And I ended up actually doubling that number at the end of my career, which is kind of crazy to think.
Yeah, I've got countless things like that in my career. And I think the next thing I wrote down with it when you're talking about that is going public. And I think that, so many of us, I think we can keep stuff inside, right? And not go public with the 155 or the whatever it may be. And I have just found for myself, and I'm curious if you found this as well, the more people I tell about my vision or our goals or what we're doing or what we're building, the more we're dreaming about, that it actually happens.
People want to help people.
Yeah.
People want to help people. A lot, like one thing I encourage my clients to do is like do a LinkedIn video, like bragging about your company. Hey, we got some exciting things going on. Like, how many people are doing that?
Yeah, that's true. And you can do that now.
And it doesn't cost anything. And you don't have to ask for approval, Even like when you're commenting on your clients' posts or people you want to connect with, you don't have to ask for approval. Hey, do you mind if I comment on what you just posted? If you're genuine, you leave like a thoughtful comment. That might be like, oh, that was nice, that person. Same thing about what you're talking about. So I love it. This is fun stuff.
How many of the fears you've put in your mind have ever blown up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
How many fears have I put in? I mean, I'm flawed like every other human. I have fears that pop into my mind. A lot of it's negative energy. But when I have those negative energies, I usually kind of go into prayer mode or journal mode or just thoughts, get out of there.
Yeah.
But when I think about bad stuff, I mean, it increases the chance of happening. I know that.
But I think the point of the question is zero, right? I mean, so many humans, and they hear it every time on this podcast, we ask everybody, the fears you put in your mind, rarely do they blow up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good.
Yeah. And I think what we can do is we put a game plan around it, right? You got a fear, I go to my journal. All right, this is a fear. How am I going to get it where it's not a fear? It's an ally. Learn to talk trash to it, right? And that's how I get through that stuff, man. It's like, oh, look, dude, I see what you're trying to do. This ain't going to work on me, And that stuff helps. I think it really helps. Talk about your podcast, your DadCast, I should say, the Quarterback DadCast.
Yeah, I ran a podcast internally at corporate when I was in corporate, and then I knew I wanted to do it because I love having a podcast that helps me listen and it helps me ask really good questions and get really good at those two things, which I think anybody in relationship building or leadership should be really good at. So I'm on a constant journey trying to do that. And so when I started, I know there was not a lot of dad stuff out there, and I was looking for I wanted to start something that was like, I don't know about you, but my kids could give two, about, oh, my dad's an author, or my dad's
right.
He could give two shits. What they care about is, hey, Dad, can you pick me up some Pro Vs? I'm out of golf balls. Or,
right.
Hey, Dad, can we go golfing? Or, hey, can we get ice cream out from a basketball game?
Yep.
And so the goal of the podcast is, doesn't matter if you're a stay-at-home dad, you work in your church, you're a teacher, you're an executive and make gazillion dollars. No one cares.
Yeah,
your ego cares. It's the story you're telling yourself. And so by interviewing people, I ask them, we talk about gratitude. We talk about life lessons, how they were raised, values their parents taught them, how are they applying those values in their own life, understand area of their dad game that maybe it's not their best, kind of do some summarization work. And there's zero script when I interview people. And sometimes people get nervous. And I always tell them, like, listen, in about an hour, we're going to have a great conversation. I'm going to have a page full of notes, and we're both going to feel like we went through therapy. I can almost promise that. And I've interviewed 289 dads. Episode 281 came out this morning.
That's awesome.
And
it's amazing, isn't it? The people you meet.
So fun. Well, like, you shouldn't have told me you're a dad because you're going to return the favor and be a guest on my show.
I thought that might be coming. I'd love to, man. I love being a guest. I always ask the questions. Yeah, you're my 416th interview, and but it's like I call it my weekly therapy, man. It's the stuff you learn. Like, I mean, I've got notes already from our conversation today. It's amazing. It's the human beings that are out there and willing to give of their time. It's a blast. So you got the Quarterback DadCast. You've got Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. Your book. Talk about that.
Yeah. So the book. You ever seen Christmas Vacation?
It's a staple at our house. I didn't realize when our kids started watching how much cussing was in it until you're a dad, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, so when Griswold saw his tree and it glowed, and he's like, "That's it." That's kind of what happened with the title. So I was traveling to Dallas one time, and I was like, I left after 20 years. It would have been like year 14, 15, and I remember I was in Dallas training some people, and I was like kind of the big brother, and they were younger folks. And I could tell they were trying to make Big Brother proud and happy and they wanted my approval. And I was training them with some stuff. And I said, guys, it's important that we go into every opportunity. Like, I want you to win every deal, but you're not. More importantly, you're going to win people first. I want you to win people, not deals. So how do you do that? And they looked at me like blank stare. I said, imagine if we lose a staffing or consulting opportunity to a competitor. And then imagine a week after I lose that thing, I call the client. I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, Casey with ABC Company. Sorry, I'm really bummed we weren't able to get it done and help you out, but I wanted to follow up to make sure that the competitor who you chose, that they followed through and got everything that you wanted. Just doing that, I picked up easy deals. Like, they'll be like, Casey, I haven't even heard from the people we hired. Or they'd say, that person we hired, he sucks. Is your guy available still? I'll take him. And just because I genuinely cared. And so I said, we have to win the relationship, not the deal. And right when I said that, I was like, that's it. Now, I didn't want to write when I was still at corporate because I didn't want to be a distraction. I didn't think it was fair to my company. I didn't want to make it as an excuse for myself. But when I kind of put the framework together, I was like, okay. So I was again, great team. A lot of things went my way, but I was like, for 10 years straight, I was our number one seller nationwide. And when I was that, I thought, okay, well, how did I do that? And it really boiled down to these 6 things. I brought energy to the room, just like a quarterback does the huddle. I set expectations really, really well, good or bad. They always knew. I was a great listener. So I talked about the difference between hearing and listening. Chapter 4 is about why using a CRM is going to make you look way smarter. And you can be one of those salespeople that says, oh, I don't want to use a CRM because my boss wants me to do it. Okay, that's a good attitude. Or just do it and don't leave things up to chance so you can remember what you're important to your clients. Chapter 5 is about ego and practicing. Most salespeople never practice. They like to wing it. And how I change that is I like to ask them, people I work with, I say, give me your client's best, who is your best client? They'll be like, oh, Susie. What's Susie's number? Why? I go, because I want to call her. Well, why? I go, because I want to call her and ask if she knows you, and I want to tell her that you practice on her and see how she feels about you. And they get this look of fear. I go, I'm joking, obviously, but why would you do that? I mean, that's what good people do. The great people practice sometimes, but the elite people, they practice all the time. They practice their craft, just like people in golf and sports and pilots. Yeah. And then chapter 6 is about patience. Relationships take time. Don't try to force it.
Amen to that.
And
it's funny you talk about I wrote down 47. I wrote down on my 40th birthday the 40 things I learned in business in 40 years. And the patience thing was a big one. I said, take the coffee, even if you don't know why, meaning go to the meeting. And I can't tell you how many meetings I've been to where I'm like, I have no idea why the hell I'm going to this meeting, but I've gone and good things happen. Right. Yeah. And then to the practice thing, I remember as a young financial advisor, this is back in the days where you had the little things you could record on, like the audio, like the little tapes, if you remember. And I would record everything I was going to say in those meetings and just play it back and be like, oh, you sound like an idiot, and keep doing it. But you're right, man. You got to practice your craft, and you got to practice it day in and day out.
To me, when I, in football, when I practiced seeing what a blitz looked like on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, when I saw that same blitz on Saturday, I was like, oh, I've seen this before.
Yeah, I've seen this movie.
Yeah, and I'd rather be overly prepared. I'm not saying to analysis, back to your phrase, analysis paralysis, but practice asking good questions. Practice things that give you anxiety. Talk about that with your team. Goes back to vulnerability. Hey, when a client says this, I'm nervous. What do you guys say? Practice it.
Yep.
So that when you talk to the client, they're going to hear the confidence in your voice.
Amen to that, man. Well, we will put all this in the show notes. The Win the Relationship, Not the Deal book, your Quarterback DadCast. But just a great discussion today, Casey, and I appreciate your time, man. It's been awesome hanging with me here, but really appreciate you being on the Circuit of Success. And where do our listeners find more of you?
The best way people can find me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. My website, just CaseyJacox.com. If you're interested in reading the book, it's on Amazon. It's available via Kindle, paperback, or my personal self, I narrated the book. So it's on Audible. Cool. That was a fun process. And then if you like podcasts, the podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, so Apple, and pretty much anywhere you can consume podcasts. It comes out every Thursday morning.
Awesome. All right, my man. Well, thanks for being on the Circuit of Success. Really appreciate your time.
Keep up the great work. Thank you.